The casserole dish was still warm when my father set it down and said the sentence that ended everything. Renee's covering it. She never refuses family. 12 people at that table. Easter, 2:40 in the afternoon. Ham going cold on my plate. My mother didn't look up from her green beans. My brother Marcus didn't even look at me. He looked at his phone, like the matter was already closed, like I was a line item he didn't need to read twice. I set my fork down. $42,000. That was the number on the table, though nobody had said it out loud yet. I'd find out the exact figure in 11 days, when I opened a letter that wasn't addressed to me, but had my signature on it anyway. But here's what none of them knew sitting around that table eating my mother's ham. I'd already been paying for 31 years. They just didn't know I'd started keeping the books. Welcome back to Home of Secrets. I'm Renee, 34, a forensic accountant from Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is the story of how my family volunteered me for a debt I never agreed to, and how the paper trail I'd kept for 9 years turned into the only thing that mattered. Drop a comment if you've ever been the responsible one, and subscribe. You're going to want to see how this ends. I was the kid who got the B+ and apologized for it. Marcus was the kid who got the C- and got taken out for ice cream because, at least he tried. I have a memory I go back to a lot. I was 11. Marcus was 6. I'd won a regional math competition. A real plaque. Brass plate. My name spelled correctly even, which felt like a miracle given how often my mother got it wrong on forms. My father set it on the mantel for exactly 1 week. Then Marcus broke his arm falling off a neighbor's trampoline, and the plaque came down to make room for the cast, signed by half the 3rd grade, and it never went back up. I worked through high school, 16 hours a week at a Hobby Lobby starting at $15, and put $4,200 of my own savings toward my first car, a '98 Civic with 140,000 miles. Marcus, at 16, was given a Camaro. Used, but a Camaro. My father said, "He needs it more. He's not as disciplined as you." As if my discipline was a resource that didn't need replenishing. As if it ran on nothing. I kept that plaque. It's the only thing of mine from that house I ever took with me. It sits on a shelf in my home office now, behind my CPA license, slightly crooked, because I never fixed the little stand it came with. By the time I was 25, Marcus was 20, and already on his second, fresh start. A car repossessed at 19. I covered the $3,100 balance, so it wouldn't go to collections and tank his credit before he'd even built any. Rehab at 21. The first time, $9,400 out of pocket, because the program wasn't in network. My parents called me, not him, to ask if I could help bridge it. I always could. That was the problem. I always could. By 28, I was a senior associate at a forensic accounting firm, making good money, married to Dale, a structural engineer who balanced his own checkbook to the penny and thought that was normal, because in his family it was. He used to watch me write checks to my parents, helping with the mortgage gap this month, I'd say, and ask gently every time, "Does this ever stop?" And every time I said, "It's not forever. It's just this once." It was never just once. Second rehab at 26 for Marcus, $11,200. A loan to my parents when my father's hours got cut at the plant. $14,800 over 2 years, paid in installments, never once mentioned again. Certainly never repaid. A wedding contribution for Marcus's first marriage. The one that lasted 14 months. $6,000. Because you're the only one who can actually afford it. Renee, don't make this about money. I kept a spreadsheet. I am, professionally, a person who reconciles numbers for a living, and I could not stop myself from reconciling my own family. By the time I sat down the week after that Easter dinner and added the final column, the running total came to $61,500 over 9 years. At every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter, I was introduced the same way by my mother, to whichever new in-law or church friend was at the table that year. This is Renee. She's good with numbers. Not, she's a forensic accountant who testifies in fraud trials. Not, she's the reason this family hasn't lost the house twice. Just good with numbers. A useful appliance. If you've ever been the one holding everything together while somebody else gets the credit for trying. Stay with me. It gets worse before it gets better. Easter dinner, this year. Marcus walks in 20 minutes late, sits down, and within 10 minutes mentions, casually, the way you'd mention the weather, that he's in a tight spot. $42,000. A debt consolidation loan gone bad, on top of a gambling habit none of us were supposed to call gambling. We were supposed to call it trading. I asked him calmly what the loan was for. He said, "Does it matter? Dad already said you'd handle it." That's when my father set down the casserole dish and said it. "Renee's covering it. She never refuses family." The table went quiet. My Aunt Pat looked at her plate. My cousin Theo suddenly found his phone fascinating. 12 people. And not one of them said, "Wait, did anyone actually ask Renee?" I set my fork down. I said, "I haven't agreed to anything." My mother said, "Don't make a scene, Renee. It's Easter." I said it again, slower. "I have not agreed to anything." My father waved a hand like he was swatting a fly. "We'll figure out the logistics later." I stood up, said thank you for the meal, kissed nobody, and left. No slamming door. I just picked up my purse and walked out into the April sun, and got in my car, and drove the 40 minutes home with the radio off. Nobody at that table called me afterward to ask if I was okay. I didn't cry when I got home. Dale found me at the kitchen table with my laptop open instead. I am, by training, a person who does not act on feeling. I act on documentation. So that's what I did. I canceled the automatic transfer I'd had running to my parents' account for mortgage assistance. $400 a month, every month, for 6 years, that they'd never once acknowledged as a loan or a gift, just as a fact of nature. I called the insurance company and removed Marcus from the auto policy I'd been quietly co-paying since his last repossession. I changed 2 passwords, the family Venmo I'd set up for emergencies that had become, functionally, Marcus's allowance account, and the joint utility portal for the house I still had access to from years of helping out. No rage in any of it, just arithmetic. 11 minutes of clicking, and 9 years of quiet subsidy ended on a Tuesday night while Dale made tea. By Thursday, my mother had called 4 times. I let it go to voicemail twice. The 3rd message said I was being petty and cold-hearted, abandoning your own brother. The 4th said Marcus might lose everything, and that would be on my conscience. By Sunday, my Aunt Pat texted me a screenshot of a family group chat I'd been removed from. My mother had posted that I'd turned my back on this family over money, and that she didn't raise a daughter this selfish. Marcus added a comment. Some people forget where they came from. I didn't respond to any of it. I opened a folder on my laptop. I'd named it, dryly, Reconciliation. And I started dropping in screenshots, dates, transfer records, voicemail transcripts. Not for revenge, for accuracy. 9 years of being good with numbers had taught me that a story without documentation is just a feeling, and feelings don't hold up in a room with consequences in it. 11 days after Easter, a letter arrived, addressed to me, from a regional bank I didn't have an account with. Inside was a loan servicing notice for a $42,000 personal consolidation loan, co-signed. My signature was on the co-signer line. I have never signed a loan application in my life without reading every page twice. I didn't sign this one at all. I called the bank, Monday morning, from my office, in full forensic accountant mode. Calm, specific, dates and document numbers ready. The loan officer, after some hesitation, confirmed the application had been submitted online 3 weeks earlier, using my social security number and a signature that, under any real scrutiny, did not match my known signature on file with my own bank. I called my managing partner, Ellen Birch, before I called anyone in my family. 22 years in forensic accounting, Ellen has seen every version of family financial fraud there is, and she didn't blink. "Get the bank's fraud department on record today," she said. "Then we talk about what you want to do with it." What I wanted to do with it had nothing to do with revenge, and everything to do with the fact that for 9 years I'd been a willing donor, and now I'd apparently been turned into an unwilling guarantor. There's a difference, and it's the difference between generosity and theft. My father, when I finally called him, did not deny it. He said, "We knew you'd say yes eventually. We were just speeding things up." As if forgery were a scheduling convenience, I filed a fraud affidavit with the bank that same week, with Ellen's office helping me assemble the documentation. 9 years of transfer records establishing a clear financial relationship, alongside a signature analysis, showing the application signature didn't match any document I'd ever actually signed. The bank opened a formal investigation and froze collection activity on the loan within 5 business days. I also did something I hadn't expected to do. I hired an attorney, not to sue my parents, but to formally and permanently sever any financial linkage between us, revoking an old power of attorney they'd talked me into years earlier, just in case, closing the joint emergency account, and putting in writing, certified mail, that I was not now, and would not in the future be responsible for any debt bearing my name that I had not personally authorized. My mother tried the guilt route first, 3 calls in one day, the last one in tears, saying Marcus was spiraling, and this could break him. Then my father tried something colder. He showed up at Dale's in my house unannounced, on a Saturday, asking to talk this through as a family, no lawyers. I let him in. I let him sit at my kitchen table. I told him calmly that the fraud investigation was already open with the bank, and that any further conversation about the loan needed to happen with my attorney present. He called me ungrateful and left. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't need to. The bank's investigators were doing the talking for me. The bank scheduled a resolution meeting, not a courtroom, but close enough in feeling. A small conference room at the regional branch, fraud officer present, my attorney present, my parents present, and Marcus, who'd been told the meeting was about fixing the loan, not about who'd actually filled it out. Dale came with me. So did Ellen, who'd offered quietly, "In case you want a witness who isn't emotionally involved." I said yes. The fraud officer laid it out plainly. The application had been submitted from a device registered to my father's email address. The handwriting analysis confirmed the signature wasn't mine. My father's face went the color of old paper. My mother tried first. We were going to tell her. We just needed the loan approved before the wedding deposit was due. Marcus's second wedding, it turned out, was the real reason for the debt, not consolidation at all. I said 3 things, and I said them quietly. You didn't ask me because you knew I'd say no. You forged my name because saying no was never actually an option you were willing to let me have. I'm not the one who needs to explain myself in this room. Marcus, who'd been silent the whole meeting, finally cracked. You always make it about you, Renee. It's always about your money, your signature, your... And then he stopped, because he heard it. The fraud officer heard it too. Even my father heard it, and looked down at the table. The lie collapsed in real time, in a beige conference room with bad coffee, exactly the way these things tend to. The bank's fraud department closed the loan and referred the forgery for review. My father, facing the threat of a referral to the county prosecutor, agreed to a signed restitution arrangement, covering the loan's processing costs, rather than risk formal charges. A quiet, humiliating settlement instead of a public one. My mother lost her standing in the church Bible study group within a month. Once the story made its way through the very gossip network she'd tried to use against me. Marcus's second wedding was postponed, then quietly canceled, when the fiancé's family learned where the deposit money had actually come from. For me, the bank closed my fraud case with a formal letter clearing me of any liability. My attorney finalized the full legal severance of financial ties to my parents. And at work, Ellen Suss, who'd watched the whole 9-year story unfold in pieces over lunch breaks for years, offered me lead on the firm's new family fraud forensic division, a role with a $28,000 raise, and my name on the door plaque. I hung that plaque, finally, next to the brass one from 6th grade, the math competition one nobody ever put back on the mantel. They match now, in a way they never did when I was 11. It's been 7 months. Dale and I had Thanksgiving this year with his sister Priya and her family, and for the first time in 9 years, I didn't reconcile anyone's accounts but my own. No spreadsheet running in the background of the meal. No automatic transfer waiting on the first of the month. My mother has called twice since the settlement. I haven't called back. Not out of cruelty. Out of arithmetic. Some debts, once you actually look at the books, were never mine to carry in the first place. Family isn't the people who assume you'll always say yes. It's the people who never make you have to. If you've ever been the one everyone assumed would cover it, you already know how heavy that assumption is, and how light it feels the day you finally put it down. If this one hit close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me, when did you finally stop saying yes? And don't forget to subscribe, because next week's story might just be your story too. Your story.